Hello all, and thanks for checking in again with Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I'm Marty, and here at WAOC we can get a little passionate, maybe over-passionate about all of the warehouse and transportation positions out there. All that being said, as employees, we're kind of in uncharted waters right now. Just not locally or nationally, but globally. Some of our lives have been turned upside down and sideways with this COVID-19 virus. I myself had some oral surgery planned late last week, and it was put on hold due to the dentist being closed. So I hope my words sound okay for you today. If not, maybe you can forgive me. We've all recently learned the preventative measures and precautions we need to be taking. Things like social distancing and self-quarantining, washing our hands frequently, and using hand sanitizer to, kind of protect our elders. I won't get into all the political positioning or scientific reasoning, and I'm even going to try and refrain from preaching my opinions here today. But one fact we can't ignore, though, is the coronavirus, or the precautions being taken. They have interrupted our supply chains on a national and global scale. Here in the United States, we're experiencing delayed imports coming in due to outbound docks in other countries being closed or working at a much lower capacity. As we've learned, one burp in the global logistics world will filter down to us, the freight and material handlers of the world. So I thought today we'd talk about how we can better position ourselves and maybe make the best of any situation we find ourselves in. Here in the States, restaurants were asked to close and all social gatherings have been canceled. As you can imagine, many different industries were immediately affected. Food service distribution cases dropped way off. Restaurant owners didn't need products, so our employer may not have had enough work for all of us order selectors and forklift drivers. The convention industry slowed with conventions and meetings being canceled, so they may not need a large staff. And even manufacturing and assembly or production facilities could have been affected. Shoot, many facilities may have even shut down for a couple of weeks just to help slow the exposure to their employees. With all this going on, we could find ourselves being laid off for a week, 2 weeks, or even longer. So, we're right back to our personal and professional goals and plans. See how I threw in planning there? We're always talking about the importance of learning, at least knowing a little bit about every position that touches ours. I mean, the more we know, the more we're worth, right? I know this week when employers were making those hard decisions and looking at names, they were also going to be assessing skills. Oh, here's a good story. I received a phone call last Tuesday asking if I could get a guy pit trained that very same afternoon. I was dealing with a supervisor in a packing department that wanted one of his packers to be equipment certified immediately. Now, I knew I had just hired him a forklift operator, and I was quite puzzled about the request, but hey, that's what we do, so I scrambled and made it happen. That afternoon, we went over to do the on-site observation. The employee actually had a lot of experience operating the forklift, so we just got him certified and went on our way. The very following morning, I was told they had laid off 5 packers. The supervisor wanted to be able to call this gentleman a fork driver so he could keep him. I'm drifting a little bit. Where's my notes? Oh yeah, so we were talking about planning. Now, when something like this happens in the world, and by no means is this the first time something big has disrupted our supply chains. Yes, it's been many, many years since we've experienced a global occurrence, but we've all seen tornadoes, hurricanes, and fires that have disrupted our lives over the years, and if we had a plan, we fared much better than those that didn't. What we're seeing now has been rough on most of us. We've always been told to have at least a month worth of expenses in savings for things like our mortgage or rent, and to have our pantry stocked with at least a week's worth of groceries and toiletries. Things like having a diverse portfolio if we participate in a 401k plan, and maybe to keep a little cash on hand. That's all planning, and it is planning to reach our goals. As we've learned, there's nothing wrong with adjusting our goals. We'll need to. If we don't, we're not going to accomplish them anyway. Life is going to get in our way occasionally. Okay, back to today's topic. I've been hearing from several young men and women that's recently been laid off for a few weeks, some hearing indefinitely, and a few that have been released from their position. You know, a lot of people in the restaurant or service industry are seeking or researching other industries right now. You know, I think our industry, or the light industrial industry, could very well be the most secure industry of them all. Take a look around you. Everything you're looking at has been on a truck and went through a warehouse at one time or another. Unless it's a picture painted for us by our kids or grandma. I guess even then the paper and crayon were on a truck, right? So you may be asking, how can I plan or be prepared for something like this, or even just a regular staff reduction layoff? I feel like we always need to be prepared. Remember how I'm always talking about being that employee and getting noticed in the right way? Productive, engaged employees, those are always on time and can follow directions, are valuable assets to our company. Now, of course, it's hard being that employee all the time, but it will always pay. Last Friday, I was talking to a manager about layoffs. His business had dropped by 50%. They were having problems getting their raw materials, so he had to meet with his supervisors to ask who they were able to go without. He told them to not only consider one's productivity, but their attendance, attitude, and willingness or ability to be flexible with work schedules and assignments. He explained how being cross-trained with a few different tasks should be considered a plus. His receiving supervisor had a gentleman that could perform 3 different positions and was his most productive person. The manager had already chosen this gentleman as one to be laid off, and the supervisor didn't understand why. The receiver had already received 2 written warnings regarding his attendance and 1 for being disruptive with other employees. The manager was looking at the big picture, and the supervisor was looking at just getting the doors closed, of course. The gentleman was laid off. He was surprised it'd been him. The employee stated that he could fix his attendance problem and that he would follow direction and quit being so opinionated, but it came too little too late. It's so important that we as employees remember our job is just a job. We're working and being paid by someone else, and their way is going to be the right way. Now, of course, if we're being asked to do something wrong or being treated bad, in a way that is not legal or within our rights, we should certainly speak up and take action. But if we're just passing along opinions or bringing our attitude to work with us, well, this could very well be the end result. So being that employee is a great plan for keeping our job in times like these. Oh, here's an example of what I mean. We talked a little earlier about the employee whose supervisor got him PIT certified to keep him, and this one is kind of like that. This lady was working through a temp agency for a distribution facility as warehouse sanitation. She was part of a team of 4. She'd been there about 2 months doing a great job, and the company planned to move her to their payroll when she completed her contractual hours with the agency. Well, with all the prevention planning that the coronavirus brought, it became necessary for the department to decrease headcount by 2. Her supervisor made it abundantly clear to his HR department that he was not willing to give her up. She was on time every day and was willing to perform every task given, every time that he asked. So the company ended up buying out her contracts so she would be their employee and laying off 2 others. This is being that person. Planning is just knowing how we're going to handle ourselves and why. We have a goal. Okay, but whether we had a plan and was that employee or not, we find ourselves being laid off. Where do we go from here? First, I hope we went home and immediately started filling out our paperwork and filed for our unemployment insurance. In normal times, we probably can go out and find another job making, what we were, or at least close to it. These may not be normal times, though, and depending what industry you're in, there may not be anyone hiring right now for our skills. So that's what we're going to do, change our skills. There's a host of occupational training opportunities within our communities. Churches, community colleges, trade schools, your state's workforce commissions. Our friend and family can probably turn us on to all kinds of ideals. Here in Dallas, Texas, our Workforce Commission has recently partnered with Impact Institute and Belmar Integrated Logistics, a sourcing company, to offer a warehouse logistics program through the Distribution Training Center. Yes, 2 companies I work with, but these programs are free. They're state-funded and cost us as employees or applicants absolutely nothing. There's all kinds of funded programs out there that will train us to new skills. But I'll be honest now, replying to Facebook groups with the word interested or info and scrolling through Instagram looking at pictures of staffing agencies that are posting, those are not going to get us new jobs, and that's not really seeking employment. On the other hand, if we follow the directions in those ads, call them and go online and fill out the applications as directed, and follow up with phone calls, in other words, do our part, we will be successful, ladies and gentlemen. We did an episode back in February, our first step, where we discussed what recruiters are looking for. You may find that episode helpful too if you're looking for work. The bottom line is, or what I'd like to get across today, is that we're all going to be fine. These are tough times for everyone. Our industry is going to bounce back first. The national supply chain is already figuring out how to safely move our freight again. As I've said more than many times, this is the greatest industry of all. And we here at WAOC would like to help any way that we could. Send us an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com. Explain how we may be able to help, and we'll try and put you in touch with an agency or program in your area that may have some opportunity for you. And be sure to stop in on Twitter and Facebook using that little @ WHSEANDOPS and ask questions through the Warehouse Equipment Operators community on Facebook too. We're all in this together, and we're all going to come out of it together. Until next week, stay positive, be motivated, and of course, as always, be safe.